Rar, rar, rar.
Hello there again. It has been a while. Today's video is going to be about making a garden bench. Now, if you're looking for a video that will tell you how to make a garden bench out of rare Australian ironwood using intricate Japanese joints, polished to perfections, like as smooth as the thighs of Polynesian virgins, by only using a potato peeler, you've got the wrong video. Because we're going to do it dead cheap and cutting every corner possible. First of all, I'm buying the cheapest wood that I could find. So it's all pine wood, 3x4s, 2x3s and 2x1s. So that stuff is never going to be coming straight. It's going to warp or it's going to be warped. So we've got to be creative around that. Second of all, the missus really wants that bench, and I better have that thing done in a reasonable time. So let's have a look about the tools and the supplies that I need. Now let's have a look at all the stuff I'm going to be using for this project. Now for material, and actually I'm shooting this after the bench is already finished, so I can't show you, but I used 3 lengths of 3x4s. The length is 4.8 meters. I don't know how you calculate it in foot. It's like 15 foot, 0.75666666. I don't know. But 3 lengths of 3x4s, 2 lengths of 2x3s, and 2 lengths of 1x2s. So that is basically your material that you need. And, go for the cheapest stuff. The pine wood, it's good. And in terms of tools, this is what I used. So I've got the old trusty miter saw, and the only specification that I actually can recommend is that you can actually swivel this so you can get a 45-degree angle cut on your wood, because you're going to need those cuts. Second of all, we're going to need screws, quite a few of them. So basically for putting the 3x4s together, I got 5 by 100 millimeter riser cutter screws, and they work perfectly for the 3x4s. For everything to do with the 2x3s, I have these 50 millimeters 4 millimeter screws. Sorry, I don't know where I put the box, but these are 50 millimeters long. And then for the 1x2s, I've got 4 by 40 millimeters. Gonna need a pencil, measuring tape. Keep this saw handy, because my miter saw, it will cut straight through the 3x4s, but sometimes when you do angles, you got just like this little bit left that just the miter saw just didn't get. So you finish it off with the old-fashioned saw there. Cheapest thing that I could find. I've got this, what do you call it in English anyway? I don't know. Notice, English is not my native language, right? But, angle thing. At least if you want to have something close to 90 degrees, that will help you. We've got the electric screwdriver. Okay, it's a reasonable brand. It's not really something special. We got a belt sander, and it's not professional quality either, but I like this brand. I've got quite a few power tools of that brand, and they've been lasting me for a good couple of years, so that's good. The grit on it is like, Jesus, I have to cheat now. P60 grit. I got the old trusty mallet. Very high grade sophisticated chisel, and that's just like for cleaning up some of the cuts that I'm going to make. And probably the most important tool I'll be using is this kind of like multi-tool sander jobby that can have this saw thingy on it, and that is basically what I'm using to do my cutouts. And honestly, I think this one has been the lifesaver of me. So what else do we got? Boiled linseed oil, right? I got 3 bottles of this, and I actually used two, and but this is just like a wood stain, and I just like had this lying around, so I got black and I've got mahogany red, and I basically mixed that all together, and just to make sure that, and especially for the ladies out there that would like to see their husbands get up and do something and make them a garden bench, and the husband goes like, oh well, you know, picket fences I can do, but you know, furniture, that's a completely different level. Bullshit. Right, after this video you can see how this idiot can do it, and you know, get him out of the chair and get him moving. As for the experienced furniture makers who are going to stumble across this video, yes, I'm going to trigger your OCD big time, and yes, you're going to be tempted to leave comments, dislikes, maybe just subscribe and unsubscribe, but make sure you mention that in a comment, otherwise I won't even notice it, and this channel isn't monetized either. So anyway, I'm not going to do everything step by step, just giving you the gist of it. And of course, I started everything by making a very careful plan with highly sophisticated software that is specifically designed for designing furniture. Not. Anyways, let's get into it.
So most of the time when I'm looking to design anything, I use a program called Oakwood, and it's free to use. It's much more like Second Life, if you're familiar to it, where you can build all kinds of objects. The handy part of it is that you can actually, after you build the object, can actually check all the dimensions of what you built, and you can basically come close to a real life design. So I made my rough idea into this program, and there I just picked all the sizes and calculated how much wood I needed. My 3x4s, my 2x3s, my 1x2s. So I knew exactly how much material I needed, and I could even have a look to see if we're going to add pillows to it, and just play around with colors and with all kinds of settings. Definitely can recommend it because it's free, and okay, so you need a bit of setup to get it working, but I always found it's just really useful.
Alright, so started making the bench. So I've got a bit of an odd way of working. I kind of eyeball everything, and I like to make things look like organic, not too, too measured. So I just started off making this frame by 3x4s, and these clamps here, they're just temporary. It's just like to keep everything in place while I'm figuring everything out. So I've been started cutting these bits, and this is still all rough. I still have to sand it, but I finished making all these inlays here. I'm just going to slot in there. So, and it's going to be quite sturdy and be able to carry a lot of weight. So done that all to the back, and then cut in these slots, and then all these slots all the way front to back. So these guys, they can come in, and it just slots in there. And this should fit in snugly. Maybe give it a whack with a mallet. Now, in the way that I work organically is normally you would figure all this out, all these cuts out, and measure it all. And if your wood is absolutely straight, there's no problem there. But didn't get the most expensive wood, so there might be some warpage. So what I do is I may just started with these 2 cuts here across, and just laid this across and just marked everything where the in-cut needed to be, and just did it like that. And then when you're done, it all fits. And once I've have all my parts together, I take it all back down and sand it all, make it all nice, and put it in linseed oil. Then I put it back together again, and I might just get the belt sander over these spots and places just to even it out a little bit. And then linseed oil again. The seating part of the bench, I got that one roughed out, so it's time to get started on the backrest of the bench, which, as you can see, I've already have. Now, the big difference is that the backrest is not going to need as much as strut support as the seat part. What I've done here is I'm going to need an inclination, because if you're going to have a straight backrest, that's going to be uncomfortable. So I kind of had a look at a couple of chairs that we had inside at Sitkel, and I noticed that you kind of need a 15-degree angle here, so that it leans backwards a bit by 15 degrees. The cut I've made for 15 degrees are both on these ends. I just left straight, just a simple frame, 3x4s, and then I added a 2x4 at the bottom that is going to rest on the back of the seating. And there's going to be a whole story about the mounting and how we're going to make this rigid, but that will be the next part. So I started cutting out these slots here and here to have these guys resting in there, and it's just cut off 2x4, but where it slots in here, and because we have that angle going on, we kind of made this kind of cut here. Right now, some people would router these out, and you might get a better result setting up your, getting all to the same size. Personally, I love this thing. This is a little Black & Decker saw thing. You can put a sanding piece on it as well, but it has this little blade that can really ease itself into the wood and are just perfect for just making these cutouts, right? And okay, it's really nice. I just found with that tool, even if it's a little bit too narrow, it's easier just to to widen it up a bit and make adjustments. And even with cutting out these parts, it's actually quite easy. So, and I might have a bit of a gap here, but by the time this is all put together and there are pillars against it, who's going to see this? As with the seating bit, I'm just building it up. I'm just roughly making the construction. Right? How do we make it fitting? We can either calculate and measure the hell out of it, or we could do something more pragmatic. So what I do after I've cut out the slots both ways, I see if it fits, and I just push it down like that. Then I take a pencil and I just mark off on the strut where my cuts need to be, like that, like that. Sorry, trying to draw this and holding the camera at the same time. And there we have a profile that we need to cut. Now for the final slots on the backrest, I'm doing some measuring, probably the only measuring that I'm doing in respect of the slats. this is going to be the top end, right? This is going to be like shoulders, head, and this is where the area where you're going to have like most lean into lumber region. So it looks like it's a bit off skewer, but it is exactly where I think the support needs to be. And you know, if we place pillows against this, these spaces here, you won't cram those pillows in there. It will stay upright, and this won't get as much pressure. So just to make sure that I'm going all the way through there, I made a mark at 20 centimeters and at 40 centimeters. I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So I will just lay them down, because if you look at my pieces here, they're not really straight lines, but I just wanted to make sure that the end to end come to the same spot. So after we mark them out, I'm just going to clamp them down, and then I will make my measurements on where I need to have my cuts in the joists here, and that will be the backrest done. And I just wanted to show you a little trick, a little field trick, when I'm actually putting down the position of where these slats are going to be. Now, I showed you before how I kind of measured this, and under the 20 and 40 centimeters, and I basically eyeball this to put them kind of, here's the heart line of it. So I would trust my eye, and it's like, this is not precision work, guys, to make it work. So, but you know, going back and forth between here and that end, just to make sure that you have as much as carrying capacity in the slot you're going to cut here. Simple little trick. I just like to take my pencil here and I put it along right here, put my finger here, so that is my depth. So I can go over here, check the next one. If it is the same, it is, then I can go to the other side and do the same. Yep. Yeah. It's much easier than trying to measure it and mess around with millimeters and all that. I'm going to draw around the slats where the cuts are going to be, and there as well, all the way back there. And that is like a minimum of measurement and a maximum of just getting it done. So just a little trick I wanted to show how I do these slats. So another thing that I want to share on how I do things quick and easy, and with the least possible amount of effort, is when we cut out these inserts for these slats when they come across. Right, we're going to be using the old trusty tool here, and then the question is, Frankie, how are you going to know if when you're cutting in here, when to stop cutting? What is your depth? How are we going to do that? Like, are you going to cut and measure, cut and measure? No, we're not going to do that. Very simple solution. Look at my blade. Now I've got some sticky tape put there, and if you notice that the part that is exposed is exactly the same depth as the slats that have to move in the cutouts. So if I'm cutting in, I need to watch the piece of tape. When it starts watching and touching the surface there, I know I've cut deep enough. So the backrest is completed now, and what I've done is just attach the ends of the slats with one screw, and the same here, and I made sure like goes well and deep. So what I'm going to do is going to take the belt sander and just clean this whole thing up really nice and clean, that we get like good fits, get rid of some of these break off points from the saw, some of the sharp edges, and just clean the whole thing up a bit. And then we can take it apart, put it in linseed oil, put it back together again, then again linseed oil, and backrest is finished. Well, there it is. I've got it all drenched in linseed oil and finally put it back together. Now, what I didn't record was making the legs and the armrest, but they're pretty straightforward. But I do want to show how it actually came together. Remember that 15-degree thing that I did for the backrest, right? I had a 2x3 here at the bottom, and you can see I screwed it down on the bed, right? But that was basically more of keeping it in place while I finished doing the rest of it, right? Because the shear force that goes on this would not be enough to withstand that. You just like pull all the nails out. So that is just keeping it in place and just basically, you know, making sure that it doesn't move laterally. So for legs, I just went with just simple straight risers, right? And I kind of like screw them into the bottom bit and into the top bit. So we already have like some construct going on here that is dealing with the forces going that way. Same here, and for some extra stability, I've put in this little scrap piece of wood. You know, when you're cutting off 45 degrees, you always end up with these scrap bits. I never throw them away. I find them they're just absolutely great of, you know, getting some more structural integrity in there and just a little bit more support that you don't have no wiggle. So I did the same at the front here, right? And then I made these armrests to go across from here to here to give these legs some extra more stability in that direction. And then again I put 2 screws in here for more support here, and also another one back in here, so it's like really keeping it all nicely together. Now, and before I put everything together, I gave it a good soak of linseed oil. And really, at the moment I used 1 bottle. I'm not finished yet. I used 1 bottle of linseed oil, and I just like get this stuff, right? Just ordinary linseed oil, boiled linseed oil, right? I figured I would need 2, so I got 3. That's how I work. Because the last thing you want to do is when you're treating everything with linseed oil and you're seeing you're running out and you're kind of like skipping on the last bit, you know, you want to drench everything in linseed oil because it's going to be out in the weather, and basically you're going to repeat this every year if you want to keep it in good condition. So it's been put together, and then again linseed oil applied. I still got a few bits to do. I'm going to turn it over to make sure I get the bottom side as well. But as far as construction goes, we're basically finished here. So the missus already took measurements on the pillows and ordering foam and all that kind of stuff. So we're nearly there. It's almost done. Oh, before I forget, I poured out my linseed oil in a little pan like this, little bowl. You know, it's just easier to work with. Big brush, apply liberally, and I've added some wood stain. And this is a red wood stain, and this is a black one. And it actually deepened the color of the wood a bit. So I think it really looks nice. So on top of the linseed oil treatment, you know, you got some tinting going on there. Not too much, but just enough like to give it a little bit of an aged look. So after the missus has taken her crafty skills in making some pillows to hide away all the mistakes that I made in cuts and all the unevenness, it actually looks like a pretty good bench. And I wish that crow would just shut up for one moment. Thank you, crow, for ruining my video. But, you know, it looks pretty good. I know it's hard to see because it's like all camouflage. It's a waterproof material that has been used, and it sits actually pretty comfortably. I know some of you might consider that like this is like kind of like hard to sit in. You're going to feel all the slats in there, but actually this is like thick enough that you don't even notice it. We used a little bit thicker foam on the bottom, so you don't even notice the slats. So there was no reason to actually, you know, make this like one massive bench with slots all across. So there we go. Job is done, and as the missus says, I am happy that you've built a garden bench worthy of Mordor. And why not? Wouldn't that be worthy of Mordor? I mean, if you got two orcs sitting on here, are they going to discuss the joints? Are they going to discuss the tinting? Are they going to discuss the fabric? No, they're going to sit there and just complain that they had nothing but maggoty bread for days. Anyways, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye bye.